The dying announcer was one trick being played back at the CBS studios. Putting on an actor that sounded like FDR was another.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country.
And while we didn't say, this is the President of the United States talking to you, the voice was sufficiently resemblant that the inference was obvious. That was the only, I thought, sort of naughty thing we did that night. Everything else was just good radio.
Here is a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Coon hunters have stumbled on a second cylinder similar to the first, embedded in the Great Swamp 20 miles south of Morristown.
Once they started moving north, heading for Morristown, heading for the Great Swamp, we knew then that the Pulaski Skyway was not far and Newark was next.
Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey. Warning. Poisonous black smoke pouring in from Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Gas masks useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Automobiles use Route 7.
There was mass hysteria, not only in my apartment, but in the whole building. We were going to die, and that was absolutely what we all thought.
Grandpa, like I said, got up, put chairs under the doors. We pulled the shades down. And we all sat around the radio.
Quietly, my father got away from the table, and he was wetting towels, and he started to put the towels around the window because the gases would be coming first.
I've never been that scared in my whole life.
And my mother was crying. The neighbors came in to kiss us goodbye and to hug us. My mother tried to make a phone call to her father and her sisters in New York, but she could never get through. The lines were very busy. She just wanted to say goodbye.
A bulletin is handed me. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One in Chicago.
They said on the show something about there have been sightings over Chicago, and at that we were all over the cage like three canary birds, you know. I was basically cool physically, but my aunt and mother ran up the walls, across the ceiling, out the window, flew around over Clark Street and came back in the hotel. And they were basically flipped out and panicked. It was not funny at the time. It's only funny now, if indeed now. We had to get out, they thought. I said, where? And they said, we'll go over to Holy Name Cathedral. They thought it would be better to get killed there.
People are holding service here below us in the cathedral. This may be the last broadcast. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke drifting over the city to reach Times Square. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use.
Then we burst into the lobby, which to our great surprise was absolutely calm. People reading, smoking cigars, dozing in the chairs by the potted palms. And something immediately told me that that was inconsistent with the end of the world. There should be a little more excitement when the end of the world comes along, for gosh sakes. You know, a few car crashes in the street or something. And then at that moment, I noticed that in the radio that was playing in the lobby area, there was another program on. And what little I knew about life, I knew that if there was a big event such as the final days or whatever, it really would not be one network's exclusive.
By the time of the commercial break, many people weren't listening. They were jamming the roads or the phone lines. The New Jersey State Police were swamped with phone calls that night. Callers hadn't heard the mid-break announcement or Wells sign-off.
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen. Out of character, to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. And if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian, it's Halloween.
And it was then, with hell breaking loose all over the country, that Orson went into his rather dubious little joke about, this is our Halloween contribution to the nation, and which was taken in bad part by a good many people at that point.
The folks here in Grover's Mill, New Jersey, certainly took it in bad part that their town had been chosen at random as the landing site for the mythical invaders. Writer Howard Koch had dropped his pencil on a map. There are no plaques here, no monuments to an event that never happened. It's said that some people, in panic, fired shotguns at that old water tower there, mistaking it for a Martian. Maybe so. Anyway, the fear soon turned to anger. No sooner was the broadcast over than the phones began to ring in New York, and the first caller from Michigan threatened to kill Orson Welles. The fear was on the other foot.
Well, we knew we were beginning to be in trouble then, because then the next call was a threat to bomb the CBS building on Madison Avenue. So we also knew that the CBS brass would be coming over to talk to us about what we seemed to have done. So we all hid in the ladies' room.
Then came the reporters, their notebooks filled with rumors.
They behaved simply horribly because they were trying to find out. So they would say things like, well, you've heard about the 8 people who were killed on the highway in New Jersey. Have you heard any other deaths? And another guy would say, well, you know, you've heard about the casualties in Ohio. Have you heard of any more? So for about an hour there, we were profoundly convinced that we were mass murderers.
You must realize that
nobody had been killed, of course, but it was a chastened Orson Welles who met the press.
In 2 days, and I've had almost no sleep. Came rather as a great surprise to us that a story about a mythical invasion by monsters from the planet Mars should have had so profound an effect upon radio listeners.
There was a danger that we were in real trouble legally, and that would mean CBS was in trouble.
You were aware of terror at the time you were giving this role? Were you aware that terror was going on throughout the nation?
Oh, no, of course not.
We were pretty sure we were going to lose the show. I don't know whether we thought we were going to jail. I don't think we had much time. You know, you don't think of these things when in the middle of the crisis, when it's going on.
Do you think there ought to be a law against such enactments as we had last night as a result of that?
I don't know what the legislation would be. I know that almost everybody in radio would do almost anything to avert the kind of thing that has happened, myself included, but I don't know what the legislation would be. We simply, radio is new and we are learning about the effect it has on people. Learned a terrible lesson.
But I was a pariah for 2 or 3 days. Everybody thought my life and career was over.
The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. The shadow knows.
The shadow might have scared a few kids. On Halloween Eve, Orson Welles and radio spooked a nation.
Come back to the final chapter of The Night Before Halloween. Come back to the legacy of autumn 1938.
Our World continues in a moment.